Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. Say, does the International House of Pancakes answer to the United Nations, or is it the other way around? Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a preview look at Statecraft from Doit Games. In Statecraft, one of four players take on the roles of the various world powers, the United States, China, Russia, or the European Union, as they vie to gain the most political power points of them all. Now, players are going to go ahead, they're going to get their agenda. This is kind of their player board. It has some information on there, like your base market. It's also going to have a place for your secret action selections each round, and you're going to have a player screen you can put in front of that to keep that private until it's revealed. Players are also going to get a number of influence discs. You're going to set aside some white influence discs. They will be the demonstrators in the game. Now, the main game board will have a track to track your power points that you will gain during the game. You will also have a market section where you can actually see and manipulate how certain commodities are worth during the game. You will also have kind of a phase tracker to let you know where you're at any point in the game. And then you've also got a popular support track, and this will be very important as you proceed through the game. The game board will also have a section for various international organizations during the game. More on that later. There's going to be the diplomacy bag. Now, each player is going to place 2 of their diplomacy tokens in the bag, and you're also going to place 3 of the demonstrator tokens in the bag as well. Players are going to select their leader. Essentially, each state has, I believe, 6 leader cards. You're going to shuffle them, draw 2, and then select which one you want to play. All the other ones that are not selected or not chosen will be sent back to the box. You won't use it for the rest of the game. But the leader card you have is going to have kind of special scoring conditions and other abilities, but critically, it will also say what cards you start with in the game. Now, these starting cards are going to be nations. There are various nations around the planet Earth. You're going to go ahead and use these to create a grid of 4 by 5, so there'll be 20 nation cards out there. Now, 4 of those cards will be cards that are on your leader card, and they'll tell you to put them up. But the cards, your leader cards will also have symbols on it, and then you will each keep drawing from the deck until you find a card that has that symbol. That card will also be added. Now, every one of your original cards that is added to the grid, you will place one of your tokens in their government spot to show that that is a friendly government to your nation. Now, next to the United Nations, which is one of those international organizations, you will shuffle a deck of UN cards and place that next to it. That's going to be very important in the game. Now, each of these nation cards will have some important information on that. In addition to the spot for the friendly governments, you will have down below commodities. And these, again, are ways you can potentially score in the game when you get to that phase. But there may be also other actions and other things you can do on those cards during a later phase. But you will also have kind of your conflict threshold. This is a number that's up in the corner, and this kind of tells you if ever there's enough influence, if ever the influence exceeds that number, you will put that card into a state of conflict. No one else can put their influence there, and you will have to resolve the conflict at the end of the round. Now, the very first thing you do every round is have the agenda phase. Essentially, what's going to happen is you're going to select which one of the 4 actions you're going to put your influence tokens in. You can put them all in one, you can spread them around. There's different things that you can do. Now, the first thing you can do is you can put your discs into the debate section. Now, if you put your discs in the debate section, when it comes time to resolve it, you're going to actually put all of those discs into the diplomacy bag. And what that means is you'll have better chances to influence the international organizations during that round. Next, you can place your tokens on the influence action. If you place them there, then what that means is you can go around during the execute agenda phase and place the tokens anywhere you want on the board, provided it's not a conflict zone. And you can kind of try to make a play for other people's friendly governments and generally just destabilize different players during this round. But really, critically, you're trying, ideally, to gain more of these nations for yourself. Now, critically, too, as you're putting the influence out, if you want to gain control of a territory, you have to exceed somebody else's number of tokens that are already there. So if somebody has 2 of their tokens on a nation and one of them will be on the friendly government, if you put 2 there, nothing changes. You have to exceed that number, you have to place 3. But again, be careful, because if you exceed the conflict threshold, that nation will become in conflict. Next, you have the bribe action. Now, after everyone's placed all their influence during the agenda execution phase, then what you can do is you can actually go ahead and change anybody's token on the board to a demonstrator token on a 1-for-1 basis, or you can change a white demonstrator token to one of your own colored tokens on the board. Again, this can have some serious repercussions when it comes to dominating some of these nations on the map. Finally, you've got the spy. You can place the tokens in the spy, and the spy is going to come in very handy during the conflict phase. More on that later. So after you've set all of your tokens everywhere you want them, you move to the agenda execution phase. Now, this is where everybody reveals their actions, everybody can see what they're doing, and you're going to implement all of those actions I just discussed. Critically, you're going to do it in initiative order. Usually it's from the person with the most political PowerPoints to the person PowerPoints, but to the person with the least PowerPoints. After you've gone ahead and done all of the actions, you're going to move to the governance phase. And there's 2 important actions in the governance phase. The first is voting. Now, this is where you're going to try to make a play for the international organizations. What you do here is one player is going to go ahead and draw tokens from the diplomatic bag. Now, they will continue to draw tokens, and as soon as they draw a token of one player's color, that player can decide on which international organization they want to place their colored token. Now, again, you're trying to vie for control of these international agencies, but unlike trying to get influence in the countries, with the international agencies, it just takes a simple majority to control them. The player will continue to draw tokens out of the bag until they have drawn 3 white demonstrator tokens. As soon as the 3rd white demonstrator token is removed, then voting ends. So looking at the international organizations, the first one you have is the Davos Forum. Now, if you control Davos, what that means is you can remove any one influence token from any of the other international organizations that goes back to that player's pool. Next, you have the control of the IMF. Now, the IMF is concerned with that market there. As I say, there's 4 different resources. And again, they're going to try to manipulate that track by switching any 2 adjacent resources in order to give them benefits when it's going to come to the scoring. So they can go ahead and manipulate the market track. If you control the press, you actually move up on the popular support track. Now, if you can't move up any further on the popular support track, you would gain 2 PowerPoints. Critically, whoever wins the press cannot go down on the popular support track during that round unless there's some very special circumstances. So as I mentioned, you have the UN deck. So whoever wins the UN deck is going to get an advantage because you reveal a UN card at the beginning of every round, and the UN card is divided into 2 sections. You have the upper deck for the winner, the person that wins the UN, and then the bottom section is everybody that didn't win. Now, there's all sorts of potential rewards. You could gain PowerPoints. You could gain the ability to put more of your discs in the diplomacy bag. You could gain the ability to put discs into your spy section on top of the regular 5 that you'll get each round. So there's a lot of different rewards you can get potentially. And if you're in the bottom phase, again, there's a lot of negatives that could happen here. You may lose influence. You may have to put more demonstrators out. There's all sorts of negative things that can happen if you lose that UN vote. So that's what you do basically during the governance phase. You are voting for the various international organizations, and then you are executing the powers of those various organizations. Next, you've got the country resolution phase. Now, what you're going to do is kind of in reading order, left to right, top to bottom, you are going to look at the various countries on the board and resolve them. So what you're going to do is look for people that have the control of those, who have the friendly government marker in those states. You're going to look at the rewards and sometimes penalties beneath the cards, and you're going to score them. Now, some of these resources that are on these cards may have you look and see what the points in the market are worth. Whatever that's worth, that translates to power points for you. Sometimes it's how many of that resource do you control on the board. But again, there's other things that you can do. For instance, some of those things may allow you to place more influence in the Muslim world and Muslim countries. Sometimes it may allow you to put more of your discs into the diplomacy bag. So there's all sorts of things that you can do in this game when it comes to those rewards. But critically, you're trying to get those power points because that's how you score. Now, when it comes to the conflict countries, as soon as you arrive at one of the conflict countries, while you're resolving these, you have to go to the conflict. And the conflict must be resolved before you can figure out who gets the rewards for that country. Now, when you're resolving conflict, you're going to roll dice. You will roll dice. Every player will roll dice if they have influence discs there, and somebody can roll dice for the demonstrator, the NPC, which is there as well. You're going to roll as many dice as you have influence discs there. You're going to roll additional dice based on the dice printed on the card. And if you control that, if you have a friendly government, you will get one additional die as well. Now, players go ahead and roll. Now, the prototype we have actually had a die that was blank except for two sides. Ordinarily, this would mean a five-sided die or a six-sided die. You would roll, you would hit on a 5 or 6. Those would be your successes. So essentially, you're rolling and you're comparing successes. Whoever got the most successes will win that conflict. After you've rolled, you can go ahead and spend your spies. If you have any spies in your agenda, you can spend those to reroll. You can reroll any number of dice, hoping to get more successes. After everybody has rolled and used spies, you count up the successes. Who's ever got the most, as I say, wins. However, if there are ties, whoever holds on to that friendly government at the beginning, they're going to go ahead and they will win. In the event that two players have the same number of successes that don't control the friendly government, then whoever has the most power points will win. Next, you have the declaration phase. It is at this time you're going to check and see if you have met your leader's objective. If you have met your leader's objective, then you're going to go ahead and move up one space on the popular support track, and it is at this time that all players must execute the advantages or penalties on the popular support track. The political support track goes from -2 to 5, and then there's a top section as well. Now, depending on where you are on this track, you're going to have to resolve it every round at this point. So if you're low on the track, you may have to swap out some of your influence on the nations for demonstrators. If it gets higher, you can add demonstrators to the board to other people's areas. Then you can potentially take bribe actions. And again, just take a bribe action by swapping out somebody else's disc for a demonstrator or swapping out a demonstrator for one of your colors as well. Next, you have the maintenance phase. If it was the end of the fourth round, you go to endgame scoring. If, however, it was not the end of the fourth round, then you're going to go ahead and put a new UN card out, and you are also going to go ahead and put those 3 demonstrator tokens back into the diplomacy bag. Now, if it is the end of the fourth round, you go to the end of the game, you go to final scoring. Now, you are going to get the PowerPoints from the PowerPoint track, those you've already claimed, but you're also going to get points for other things, such as you will gain 2 PowerPoints for every friendly government you control in the grid. You will get positive or negative PowerPoints depending on where you are on the popular support track. You will gain 1 PowerPoint for every spy you have left on your agenda, and you will gain 1 PowerPoint for every 2 tokens that you have in the diplomacy bag. So players total up all of their PowerPoints, and whoever has the most wins. Statecraft. Now, I'd like to point out that this is a prototype. It is not the final version of the game Statecraft. Statecraft from Doit Games is a game of international intrigue. It is a game where you and the other players are vying for control of the various countries in the grid, and at the same time you want to control those international forums. That's going to help you out a lot during the game. You are constantly trying to decide who to go after, which country to destabilize in the hopes that maybe you can get it for yourself or just knock another player down on points. But critically, you want to keep the other players from doing that as well. That's going to make things like the bribe action very important. But also, too, it may be important when that when those conflicts come up, that you have spies that allow you to do rerolls because you will need them. So this game has a lot of strategy to it. Where to put your tokens, where to influence your tokens, which international forums to go after, how should I best play some of my bribe abilities, right? So there's a lot of great choices here, but there is some luck as well with the die rolls and with the diplomacy bag and pulling your tokens out of that. Now, this is a mean game. This is a game where you are constantly trying to dominate the board, and you've got to go after these other countries, and you just know sooner or later those people that you went against are going to come back and try to take what you've got. So it's a very interesting game on that level, and it is filled, as I say, with some tough choices, a little bit of luck, and ways to mitigate that luck. Now, this game will soon be up on GameFound. I'll go ahead and post a link into the description of this video when that is up. And if this looks like something you might be interested in, then I would recommend you check out Statecraft when it's available on GameFound. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we'd ask you to please go ahead and leave a comment for us here on this video on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on Facebook, on Twitter. We would ask you to please like this video and please subscribe to our channel. That means a lot. Please also give a thumb to this video on Board Game Geek. Now, if you do like this channel, I would urge you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about history, military history, books on history. I post some of my lectures on there, so please subscribe to that channel as well. It would mean the world to me. Now, also, too, if you do like what you see here, please consider clicking on the Super Thanks button and leaving a tip. What does a diplomat and a good doggy have in common? They both want treaties. Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. God knows that I love to fight.
They just get one roll anyway. They don't get to reroll.
All right, what did you roll?
I rolled 2.
You got 2 successes?
Yeah. You gonna use that spy?
Nah, what the hell?
That's what they're there for.
That's what they're
Why
for.
not?
Yeah! Oh, man! Woo! Yeah! That's what they're there for.
Now there's your 3 1s, man.